Thank you. Yes, I've attended city council meetings and I've watched them on YouTube videos for 3 years now, and I've become more and more interested in city politics. I have opinions, I have ideas, and I have gone to city council and shared my ideas in public comments, in open hearings. I think it's time to stop or to do more, and so I've decided to run for city council as a way of participating more fully in the government of this town. Interestingly, Stephanie Stodden, who's the director of the museum, made a comment online when I posted something and said, if you have these opinions, why don't you run? And I thought, over the next several months, I thought, she's absolutely right. It's one thing to sit and have opinions. It's another thing to take responsibility for those opinions and to do the hard work and to sit at the table. And I think I love Eureka Springs so much. It is a town that has given me so much, and I want to give back to it. So I've decided to run for city council. I joke that I have deep roots in Eureka Springs. I just don't know where they're buried. I had a great-grandfather who arrived in Eureka Springs in 1880 and within a year died. And there are no records of where he's buried. But I came to Northwest Arkansas in 1984, worked for the University of Arkansas. I built a cottage on Beaver Lake at the end of Hills Peak Road in 1989, and essentially moved there when I retired in 2007. And in 2012, I bought this house in Eureka Springs and moved into the city. I've worked for many universities. I've served on boards and committees all my career. I know how to make a committee move smoothly and efficiently. I've served on boards of public corporations and most recently Butterfield Trail Village in Eureka Springs. It's a retirement community. I served on the board for 5 years. I am looking forward to participating in the Eureka Springs government structure. Yeah, thanks. I think preparations are required to become familiar with the way the city works, and to do that by attending city council meetings or watching them on YouTube videos. It really helps to go back and see the origins of the ordinances, how they were originally written, and to read the minutes of the meetings that originally considered them, because the discussion at those meetings tells you what the concerns were and why this ordinance was written. I think that I also am interested in how other cities deal with city government. Eureka Springs is not the only city in the world, and other cities operate in ways that are efficient and effective. I think also in preparation, if elected, I will make use of the Municipal League's volunteer certification in being a municipal employee. It's a 21-hour program. You go twice a year to Little Rock, and they train you in how to be a municipal servant in Arkansas. Well, my career was as a research scientist, and one of the things I can do is to formulate a problem in a way that is researchable. I can search for answers. I can gather data. I can draw conclusions. That's what I've done all my career. Numbers don't scare me. I've taught graduate statistics. I am very good at working with numbers, working with figures. I've administered departmental budgets. I know finances. Those are not things that bother me at all. I think I've also have an interest in the citizens of Eureka Springs. Going from the city council, I feel that I've not been heard. And I think it's important to sit at the table and to be responsive to the citizens. And so that's another part of the qualifications I have, is that my first focus is on what is it that the citizens of Eureka Springs want. Well, I'm pretty fortunate. I'm a retired civil servant. I worked for state governments all my life. I don't owe anybody money, and I really have no obligations, so I don't foresee any conflicts of interest. Of course, if any arise, I will recuse myself and from both the discussion and the vote. Now, there's some people may wonder about whether or not it would be a conflict to serve on a city council with your spouse. And my wife is also running for another position on the city council. The state law is very clear that that is not a problem as long as both members are duly elected to that body. And of course, if we are elected, then our interactions about city politics and city decisions will be governed by the same laws and regulations that would govern our interactions with any other alderman. Okay, 3 agenda items. Let me first say that I have ideas about what the city needs to address, but I don't have specific, I'm not committed to any specific answers. I think the answers that come up are the answers that emerge from the city and from the city discussion. The issues that I think we need to address are access. City parking is a real problem. We are keeping tourists away from Eureka Springs by not having parking readily available. And I hear from friends in Fayetteville and Rogers, they don't come here because they know they can't find parking. We need to solve that problem. We need to address that problem. We need to do something. Second issue, I think, is safety. The sidewalks are unsafe, and this is another feature that I think Eureka Springs is known for, its poor sidewalks, and it keeps people away. And that's something we need to do something about. We don't need to be keeping people out of this town. Another aspect of safety is city lighting. Right now there are 12 of the 17 lights on light posts down on the corner of Spring and Main aren't working. The bulbs are burned out. That's unconscionable, I think. That needs to be solved. Third thing, I think, is utilities. Last year we addressed rate increases in sewer and water. I think it was done in a very poor way. For instance, we use a tier system that makes absolutely no sense. And so the people who use the water the least and the people who use the water most pay a higher rate per gallon than the people in the middle. Why? That makes no sense. And there was no justification. I asked over and over again at the hearings for a justification. I found none. I think also it's clear if you look at the figures that the water rates more than pay for the expense of the water system, and the sewer rates don't. And so there's an inequity there. I think also utilities are an issue for the fact that 25% of the city is not on the sewer system. And so that's inequitable. I think also one of the things I would like to educate the city about and the council about is a water sewer commission. I think as I worked with and presented to the city council, I think these issues are too complicated for a group of citizens who have all of the problems of the city to address to become educated in. And I think that it might be an opportunity for us to get more considered and professional treatment of our, dealing with our utilities by investigating whether or not we could make use of a water sewer commission. Okay, well, the first thing I think we need to address next year is we need to address bigger issues. City Council has become bogged down in really minor issues that are should be handled by enforcement and careful reading of the ordinances and the laws. They do not need to be addressed by the City Council, for many of them. I think that the big issues in the town are what our future is going to be like. And I think that we need to spend more time focused on those things. I think a second issue is that the council needs to be proactive rather than reactive. There's a perception that City Council has been dealing with problems as they come up, putting out fires. And the big issues don't get addressed. We don't put in place now the programs that will continue for 4 and 5 years to improve the city and make it a modern city. And I think a third thing is that the council needs to lead. In the mayor-council form of government, the citizens are in charge. The citizens elect the council, and if they don't like what the council does, they change it through referendum. The council enacts the ordinances and passes the budget, and it supervises the mayor to enact those ordinances and to spend the money the way that it's budgeted. And the mayor supervises the city employees. And I think that process has fallen down in the past, and I think the City Council needs to reestablish the priority of governance that is the mayor-city council form of government. Yeah, of course I support it. It's state law. Medical marijuana is coming, and I think in the next several years we're going to have recreational marijuana. I've traveled in Canada and Washington and Oregon and Colorado and seen those states that are operating with marijuana, and it isn't a problem. So I'm not worried at all about problems coming from it. I think it is a great opportunity. It will change, I think, the way tourism operates in Eureka Springs. And as far as council dealing with anything to deal with, yeah, we have to change the marijuana law. There's a penalty right now for possession, and that's obviously needs to be changed. I think the rest of it is that we need to stand out of the way of the economic changes that will be coming from the creation of this industry. Yes. I actively campaign for the Fairness Ordinance 2223. I support diversity. Diversity is one of the wonderful things about Eureka Springs, and it's one of the things I love about Eureka Springs. Yes, I support the gays and the bisexuals and the transgenders and lesbians. It's just absolutely. The city code is 501 pages long. I had looked at parts of the city code in doing my research for various ordinances that I was interested in, but I have started and I'm about a third of the way through reading the code from front end to the back end with my highlighter and my pencils to make notes on it. I think it's very, very important for an alderman to be very familiar with the code. I've seen several times this year when the council has made mistakes because they didn't know the code. They didn't know that there was not an ordinance to do what they were doing, or that they didn't know that they needed to have a hearing to decide what they were deciding. So it's very important to know the ordinance. In terms of what needs to be changed, that'll come up as problems arise. The biggest problem I see is that the ordinances are not, first of all, not known, and not known by the city, not known by the people who enforce them, and not known by the city council, and that they're not being enforced. Our sidewalk ordinances are a perfect example. We have in 2010, they passed a very comprehensive sidewalk ordinance that starts with a survey of every sidewalk in the city. That survey was started but never completed, and no one that was surveyed was ever informed of the results of that survey. I just think that's unconscionable, and that the major problem I see is enforcement. Okay, I think we're at a decision point, really. I think that there's an element of the way we've been operating that is wants to keep Eureka Springs in the way it was in the past, and we need to be careful that that doesn't make us only focus on the past. I don't want Eureka Springs to be like that house that is only repaired when the pipe breaks. I think we need to prepare it for the future and the future economy. The economy in Northwest Arkansas is changing. Tourism is changing. We are going to be an outdoor tourism destination with the bike trails and things like that. With medical marijuana, I suspect we're going to become a health tourism place. And I think we need to be open to those opportunities. You know, another thing is I think we can make changes that will make this place more attractive to citizens and visitors. One of the things I did is in my profession was to train people on how to overcome resistance. And I think in getting tourists to Eureka Springs, there's a lot of resistance to coming to a town that doesn't have parking and doesn't have safe sidewalks. And I think we can do something both in advertising and certainly in dealing with those problems to make this a much more economically viable community. Yeah, my name is Eric Knowles, and I'm running for alderman in Ward 3, Position 2, and I sure would appreciate your vote. I think I have many things to add to the city and to the city council, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serve you and listen to what your needs are and to try to put them into an effective city government. Thank you.